Karen Kennedy. I'm the Suicide Bereavement Services Manager here at Full Circle Grief Center. And today I'm going to be talking about different types of grievers. I do have a blog post on our website with this information for you to refer to, but I wanted to give a little more detail today in this conversation about grief. Most people I speak with share this idea that one of the hardest parts of grieving is understanding that everyone grieves differently. The emotions, thoughts, behaviors, physical reactions, as well as spiritual expression is very individualized. As we know, people are wired differently, and we show up to various life situations differently all the time. We can easily see this in the workplace or in the family unit. Oftentimes, we are more accepting of others' differences in those situations than we are of when people experience grief. We've been taught to identify others' different approaches to situations and celebrate the diversity with various strengths and weaknesses in others. However, when it comes to grief, we can struggle with how we are showing up on our own grief journey and or how someone else is showing up on their grief journey. So let's talk a little bit about the work that researchers Doka and Martin have provided, which explain the differences in how people grieve. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And here we see different types of grievers. The first griever is the instrumental griever. And this griever really feels the need to intellectualize their emotions. They may read many books on grief. They will research grief. They'll learn what grief looks like, and they'll dive into the psychology surrounding grief. Really need to learn more about the emotions and what they're feeling. These people are also very action oriented and find physical ways to express their grief. I've had many group members share that they really needed to be physically active, outside yard work, inside organizing, cleaning, physical activity, running, walking, need to be active and moving. This type of griever is also more reluctant and hesitant to talk about feelings with others, and they may express their own feelings in private. They may journal, they may do blog posts, they may write letters to their loved one, less expressive with others. These type of grievers also seek solitude, time to reflect, to be independent. They adapt to their loss through a lot of thinking and a lot of doing. These type of grievers also tend to need to know, really have that information. I had a group member who found their grief journey really was attached to finding a lot of information about the disease that took their loved one, sharing statistics, sharing facts, raising awareness, talking about prevention. That was part of their grief journey and how they were moving forward. Also, instrumental grievers are very future oriented, very focused on what changes need to be made. What does the road look like now going forward? And these instrumental grievers tend to be less needing or willing to attend a group, support group, or to look for individual counseling. They feel like they are getting their needs met through books, through internal work, through the process of doing and moving forward. These type of grievers in the United States tend to be more men. Then we have intuitive grievers. These type of grievers in the United States tend to be more women. These grievers are openly expressive with their feelings, very verbal, very expressive with tearfulness, needing that physical connection, needing to be around other people. They really are looking for support from friends and family, the need to talk about their loved one, the need to be able to have someone sit with them while they're feeling very profound emotions. These type of grievers yearn for comfort. I hear a lot of group members share that they feel most comfortable at home, not really wanting to go out and to look for ways to find support with through books or even the running or walking or housework and things. They really find that they need that support just in their home, their comfort of their own home. Many intuitive grievers do become emotionally exhausted, physically exhausted, anxious, a lot of trouble concentrating, making decisions. We see this a lot in intuitive grievers. And these grievers do tend to want to be involved with groups and to have someone to speak with to support them through their grief journey. Then we have a group of grievers called dissonant grievers. And dissonant grievers encounter conflict because the way they experience their grief internally and the way they express it externally is in conflict with each other. The dissonance may be due to family, cultural, societal traditions. Their grief is profound and they don't feel like they can express it the way naturally that they would like to. And the most common type of griever is a blend between all instrumental and intuitive. And that's where we see most people on a continuum of grieving. And it's really important to know that there's no right or wrong way to grieve. And not to box someone or yourself into one of these specific types of grievers. The other thing to know is that, that it's helpful to know that all of these ways of grieving are equally as important. And difficulties can arise in relationships with family members, friends, when we have an expectation of how we should be grieving or how somebody else should be grieving. And different grievers may pass judgment on others or be uncomfortable with the way that someone is grieving. So what do we do when that happens? What do we do when partners, family members, friends are grieving differently than us? Or when someone's grieving and we're trying to support them and we don't understand their process? So I referred to an article in 2009 by Paige Taller, and it's called Using Communication to Cope with Loss. And you can find that information on the blog post at Full Circle. And she talks about 5 ways to support one another. And the first thing that she talks about is learning to accept differences and acknowledge and embrace that if you have a shared loss in a family, that the way that you grieve may be completely different than the way that your partner grieves or your child or your family member. And to accept that, accept other people's comfort level with the grieving process. Another way is to compromise. Create strategies that allow one person to partially fulfill their need of, maybe it's that intuitive griever that really needs the support and needs people to listen and to support them at that time. And then when that's finished, to allow someone who supports more individually to process their grief that way. It can be so disruptive and produce such discord in a family when others are making judgment calls on people and how they're grieving. I had one group member share with me that she felt so frustrated because in her family, it appeared that the more tears and expression of grief meant the more that person loved or was mourning the loss of this loved one. And that just isn't the case. Everybody is so different in how they express their grief, and we can't compare one person's journey with another. Another strategy to use when you have people who are grieving differently is really relying on nonverbal communication. Those that find it difficult to talk about the loss can support and care through displays of affection and kind gestures to somebody who does need more of that comfort and support from others. And I have group members that also share sometimes they feel so relieved when someone comes to their door and just drops off maybe a bouquet of flowers and a note, and they don't have to interact and engage with that person about their loved one. And then on the other hand, I have group members who find that somebody coming to their door and speaking of their loved one is the most wonderful thing that they could do for them. The last strategy to use would be to find supportive family and friends. Family and friends are such a strong source of support during difficult times. And also, if you're feeling alone in your grief, it's okay to ask for outside help. It's okay and very much helpful to people on their grief journey to find a support group that works for them, to find an individual counselor that they feel comfortable with. And so, in general, grieving the loss of a loved one is a difficult journey for many. And learning different grieving styles and ways to support one another during this journey may provide peace and comfort. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you'll have the opportunity to hear more conversations about grief from Full Circle.